Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. So, today I want to talk about how we create our own stress by not knowing what we're able to do and what we shouldn't do. So, you've heard the maybe some term similar to, you stretch yourself too thin, or you take on more than you can handle, or you bite off more than you can chew. And all of those basically mean we are putting ourselves in a position where we're doing more than we need to do, or we are putting ourselves in a position where the things that we are committing to cause us stress, but we don't recognize ahead of time that they're going to cause us stress. And the reality is, we learn from our experiences, right? So sometimes we have to go through the stressful thing, take on too much to recognize that this is more than I can do. And then in the future, we would make better choices and say, hey, last time I tried to do this, it really stressed me out. It was too much. I couldn't handle it. Now I'm not going to do that. So inevitably, we're going to make a mistake and do something that is more than what we should do, and that's what teaches us. But the problem is, there are a lot of people that don't learn from those mistakes or don't learn from those past experiences. So that's the kind of the focus of today and what I want to talk to you about. So I think we all have to be self-aware enough to know, am I taking on something that I can handle, or is this something that I really should say no to? Just because I can do something doesn't mean I should do something. Just because I have the skill to help this person with this project that they want me to help with doesn't mean I should, because I also have these other commitments or obligations. Or maybe I just don't want to fill every spare moment of my time with a responsibility. And so, again, just because I have the time, doesn't mean I should commit to this thing. Maybe I need to say no because I know myself. I know that that's going to stress me out. Or every time I do something like that, I get overly stressed, or I get overwhelmed, or I get annoyed every time I have to go do it because I wish I could just relax at home or whatever. And there are certain things that we should push ourselves to do. We should try to be engaged in activities that are good for us and try to do things that will make us better. But it's also okay to say no. It's also okay to say, I don't have the time in my life for this, or this is something that's going to cause me stress. So, what are those things for you? I want you to really think about the kinds of things that you've committed to doing before, that in hindsight, you can really look at that and say, I probably shouldn't have done that. If I hadn't done that, if I hadn't taken that on, it would have been, my life would have been a lot easier. I wouldn't have been as stressed out. And so asking you that isn't to look at the past and be regretful. It's to look at the past and try to learn from that. What are the things that you can look back and say, I actually repeated that mistake multiple times, or I kept doing that to myself every time, and I shouldn't have. So now I want to really take a minute, look at those things, and say, okay, moving forward, I need to stop making kind of automatic responses or decisions about this category of thing, because every time I do it, I really get overwhelmed. Like, for example, a pet. There are a lot of people that will get a new dog because they are really, like, they love puppies, and they're, someone in their family, their kids bugging them for a dog. But then when they get the dog, they don't have time to take care of the dog, or they don't have the patience for the dog, or they hate their sleep being disrupted. Well, when you get a puppy, you are not going to be sleeping well throughout the night. So you need to consider, is this a good decision, or is this an emotional decision? Same with finances. There are people that will want to buy something, or pay for a trip or something, and every time they get excited and they make that emotional decision, but then when it comes down to it, it's a really big financial burden that they can't afford, and now they're stressed because they can't afford maybe some of their regular day-to-day things because they made a bad financial decision. And so that's a great example of looking back and saying, okay, what is my tendency with financial decisions? Do I have a tendency to buy things on impulse, online, or at the store, or whatever? And then do I feel regretful, or does that cause an issue with my spouse where now we have an argument over finances because it wasn't in the budget, or I'm an overspender. So if you can look back and learn about yourself in that way, then the key is, what are you going to do to break that habit? There are some people that just by recognizing that they have these habits can break them, but there are some people that have a really difficult time breaking those impulsive decisions or changing their mindset around just justifying why we should buy these things or why we shouldn't, because when you justify it, it sounds great in the moment, but your experience shows you that that's always a bad choice. um, Same with again, like I said earlier, commitment to do something with someone. If you're the kind of person that does not uh, want to spend your free time doing something, but then when someone asks you to do something, you don't like saying no, or you don't take the time to think about, how am I going to feel when that comes up? For example, there are some people that always are excited when they get asked to do something, but then again, when that day comes, they're always annoyed that they have to do it. So then that person should start, intentionally thinking, hey, next time someone asks me to do something, I'm going to practice this automatic response. Hey, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. Or let me check my schedule and I'll get back to you. And you build that in to give you time to really think ahead. You might know you have nothing going on, but you need to give yourself that space and that time, because your habit, your automatic response is to say yes, and then you always regret it, or you always, feel annoyed about it. So by building in that little plan of, let me get back to you, then you're kind of giving yourself the time to remember that start thinking ahead. That you're going to not want to do it. So let me ask myself, let me visualize myself on that day when it comes time to getting up to do it. How am I going to feel? Well, I always end up feeling annoyed. So let me go ahead and say no. And then, if you have guilt around saying no, then that's something to work on. But the reality is, it's going to be easier to say no up front, if you can practice that and really wrap your mind around it, than putting yourself in a situation where you feel annoyed or stressed or overwhelmed because you really didn't have time for it or didn't want to do it, or it's taking away time from something in your family or other responsibilities. That's always going to be bigger in the end. And you could think of bigger life choices like relationships. If you know yourself and you know that you have a tendency to get into friendships or relationships with people of a certain kind of personality or with a certain background, but then you always end up having a clash with that person because of that personality issue or of the habits. Like maybe you're making friends with people that really don't share your values. Well, if you know that, then why are you putting yourself in a position where you engage and nurture this friendship? Or why are you dating someone that clearly has qualities that you don't like because you've experienced those things in a past relationship and that was a problem? If you're in a if you're dating and you decide you want a child, you want a kid in the future, but you're dating someone that's telling you, I don't want to have kids, don't put yourself in that situation. Or vice versa, you're done having children and you're dating, and the person you're dating is really wants another kid. Don't put yourself in that situation. It's tough to walk away from things, but it's easier to walk away from it than to live stuck and regretful and knowing that you could have just made a different choice at the beginning. And again, hindsight's 2020. It's always easier to look back and wish we had done something different. But I'm not talking to you about your current regrets. I'm talking to you about learning from those regrets to make better choices in the future. And there is never an end point to that. We are constantly making decisions. We are constantly growing and constantly moving in life. So that means there's always a decision that has to be made, that some will be new and some will be familiar. Some will be decisions that are similar or just have characteristics that kind of match past decisions. So we have to be involved in our lives. We have to play a more active role in the today and in as much as we can in future planning, so that we're not walking right into decisions or situations that could have been predicted if we had just stopped long enough to give it some thought and really draw on our past and our experiences to make this choice in a better way. Um, there are people who uh, get stuck in that regret where they wish that they would not have made a decision, and that haunts them, and that sucks. Like, I don't want you to be in that place. And if you currently have a circumstance in your life that you feel really unhappy with, you feel stuck in it, then I really want you to hear this and say, and just take it in as you're not alone. There are a lot of people that have that, but it would be really awesome if you would seek out some support for that, because it's a really hard way to live. It's a hard thing to, if you're in a relationship or a marriage that you are miserable in, and you look back and think, well, I had a chance to not do this and I did it anyway, and I'm beating myself up for it and I feel so bad about it. Well, that's a really, really unfortunate mindset. The reality is probably true that you are unhappy, but being stuck in the regret isn't going to fix your problem. You have to find support and build on, ways to work through it, to figure out if there are other ways to improve the situation or whatever. But being stuck and allowing yourself to stay stuck in the misery or in the regret is just going to cause you to waste more time in unhappiness and in regret. So we never want to stay stuck. If we have the opportunity to learn from it for the future, we want to really try to do that. And regret is normal. I think everyone, some people will be like, oh, I never regret things. I don't want to live like that. And that's great. If you can pull that off, that's fantastic. The reality is, I think it's human nature to have regrets. I think it's human nature to look back at things that we've done and feel bad about it. But again, the mindset is the most important. If we feel that regret, do we acknowledge it and then try to move forward from it? Or do we acknowledge it, sit in it, and invite it to just live at the front of our brain? And that's not great. I don't want you to do that. So anyway, all of this is kind of, again, the focus is be mindful of your experiences, be mindful of your choices, and try to play an active role in learning from that so you don't repeat the same habit. So again, don't bite off more than you can chew. Right now, if you take time, if you just take a minute and think about, what are some of the things in life that you maybe have done more than once, and every time you wish you hadn't done it. I think we can all think of something, but right now I'm really want you to pause what you're doing, focus in with me, and ask yourself, what are the things that I've done more than once that I wish I wouldn't have done? And then ask yourself, is this something that I actually do pretty regularly? Do I commit to do things that I don't want to do? Do I say yes to things that I want to say no to? Do I engage in friendships and relationships that suck the life out of me instead of make me feel good about myself? Am I perpetuating a situation at my job? Am I stuck in a job that I don't want to be in? Am I stuck in a relationship that I don't want to be in? And it's just because I don't stop to think about how I can make different choices. So if there's anything that comes up for you with that, then all I'm encouraging you to do is be reflective. Take a chance, or take a minute to really ask yourself, can I change that? Is there anything I can do right now that would change the direction of this category that I find myself falling into? Let's say it is the financial thing. What can I do to not just wish I could make different choices, but get support? Do I need a financial planner? Do I need a different financial system? Instead of a credit card, use cash? Do I need an accountability buddy? Do I need a different conversation with my spouse? Do I need to set a budget? Solution. And honestly, I think one thing that a lot of people do, and it's human nature, but we are all so good at making excuses as to why we can't fix something. I think a lot of people that have a history of making certain choices that aren't good, or straight up bad choices, are really good at saying, well, I've tried and I can't change that. Meh, that's crap. I'm going to call you out on that. I call myself out on it all the time. There is no reason why we can't make an effort. If you're telling me that you are giving 100% effort every single day to try to change it and it's not changing, okay, I might give you that. Chances are you're not. I know constantly have more I can give to make better choices. I make excuses for things all the time. Why am I not working out? Well, there's no good excuse. I can make one up, but the reality is it's laziness or it's just a choice to prioritize other things. It's normal. So if you are the kind of person that makes bad financial choices or makes impulsive decisions about certain things that you shouldn't commit yourself to, or whatever, avoid cleaning your house because you tell yourself you don't have the time to, but then you're miserable because your house is, I don't know, that's a simple example. But if you are the kind of person that tells yourself that you can't, that's never the actual truth. There's no can't. There's don't want to, I'm not ready to change, I'm not willing to put in the effort, I don't know how, I just honestly don't care enough. Like, those are real answers. But the I can't, I just don't think that that's possible. You've not exhausted all the options. None of us have. So I'm calling you out a little bit. I want you to look at your past, learn from that, call yourself out, and then challenge yourself today and say, am I doing everything that I can to change this? Or am I making excuses because I don't want to put in the effort? Just go for it. Think about it. See what happens with that way of thinking and that change in mindset. And then really make an effort to pull yourself away from like autopilot decisions. Pull yourself away from doing things that always lead to that frustration or regret. And just start playing an active role and just see if that helps things go a little bit more smoothly in your life. Okay, I'm going to wrap up here. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.